Hi everyone. My name is Evgeny Shvarov, and today I'm happy to start InterSystems IRIS security contest kickoff meeting, and it's really great to see you all here. And let me pass the floor to Andreas Dieckow, product manager of InterSystems. Andreas will introduce what are the security concepts, systems, applications, and actually what we expect from the participants in this security contest. Andreas, please.
Thank you very much, Evgeny. Just a quick check. Can you see a PowerPoint screen?
Yes, we do.
All right, perfect. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm really excited about that contest here that Evgeny has put together. Yeah, he also made my life extremely easy. I looked last week at the website where he put up a lot of material about how to learn it, how to get there. So it's really great, the contents that I put together. So I'm not trying to duplicate this, but I'll have a few things. Now, security model is, of course, something that comes often in multiple layers. And where is InterSystems really being involved in this? At the core, of course, it's with InterSystems products, right? So InterSystems IRIS is something that InterSystems has a high interest in securing in and providing security, giving customers an opportunity to build secure applications. Now we can't avoid the environment because we're embedded in this, so we have to interact with elements outside of the core product by itself, and we need to get this right there as well. But then the real focus for the majority of stuff is within the product, of course. Here, the real important element that needs to be protected is, of course, data. Sensitive data, data that has value, data that has meaning, which is typically accessed through applications. And I would exclude SQL, for example, as an application mechanism, or analytics as an application that accesses data. So it's very rich. And of course, there are security operations, which are mostly done by customers, and being aware of this as well, because they have to operate with the environment as well. But there's a certain level of orchestration, synchronization required between all these elements that are really critical and have to fit very well together so that they build a really strong chain that protects the environment in all layers. As we all know, the weakest link is the one where somebody is trying to break in or doing something. And of course, break-ins are the big topic that everybody is concerned about these days. The core elements of any kind of security product is, of course, an authentication mechanism. InterSystems IRIS would not necessarily need one. We have chosen to do one. We have multiple ways of authentication. Kerberos is a very strong mechanism that we support. A lot of customers are, however, using other technology like LDAP or our product authentication, or use it in conjunction with Oauth. Use an element of authentication that is done through the authorization element of Oauth. Then authorization is actually a real key component within the InterSystems IRIS component. So this is where the system needs to know what are resources in our environment. A resource, for example, could be a database. It could be a piece of data. It could be any kind of things that people envision for. It could be a service, a connection mechanism. And a resource is then protected by rights. Rights could be in our systems a read write or write write, which include things like you can make something changing, right? And of that sort. Data encryption is not really a security element in itself, but it's a protection mechanism that is trying to help people from prying eyes, right? So if somebody wants to look at information and they're encrypted, then the prying eyes cannot see the clear text of it. That is, of course, a really vital element, specifically for data in transit, where the information that goes over some kind of connection that people don't have control over, you want to make sure that you have some form of security aspect to it, which is then encrypting the data. So you're relying on that mechanism there as well. Security is all great, but things need to be tracked and kept in check. Auditing is a really great mechanism for this. We have auditing within the product. It's a tamper-proof auditing mechanism that a normal user would not have access to or can manipulate, therefore, the contents in this database that is dedicated to entirely host auditing. That is just auditing about InterSystems products. Of course, there's auditing in all kind of layers of the operating system and other products that are used for this environment. Auditing is an area where we're expanding our integration. So we are going to support SEIM connections with the next version in next year, with the first version in next year. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I think most people I saw are experienced with this. So special considerations just in general in looking our product. Application security is something that is requiring special attention with our product because we're embedding routines within our product. So everything has to be done through our mechanism. And then, of course, the thought is really important about how do I actually make this happen? And how do I make this happen that the user has access to a system that a malicious user cannot take advantage of if he's operating without the context of an application. So application often is designed to control a user, what he's doing, sometimes not with enough considerations about the security elements on it. So they rely on the workflow of the application itself. But if a user could just log into an environment and use his credentials to have access to the database, then somebody could consider or be worried about that user will also have access to the system in other forms, for example, through SQL, and then suddenly could operate this without the context of an application. So a lot of our elements in additional protection inside the system are based on role escalation. So where we are under the hood or a part of the development of the application, escalate roles of the process. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always the process that holds all these roles, not an individual. An individual is just a contributor of putting rights into the process, and as such as an application in itself. Roles can temporarily switch that context to allow for more powerful operations in a protected frame. So that's something that is really important for us that has been implemented and is heavily used in the system. Another thing is clients can't be protected. I run into this quite often where customers build applications and they put some protection mechanism on a client environment. Clients can't be protected. A client has everybody should consider this immediately. Clients can be hacked. Like somebody that sits outside your internal environment has full access to it. They can look at the network, can intercept the network before you're doing it. So every protection mechanism really has to become from the server and be controlled and or validated by that. So what is coming from InterSystems, which is in the pipeline, what we're working on right now in what is coming, which might be interesting in considering where you would like to invest some time in this context is We're changing away from having default users. Today we have admin users, we have super users in it. We need to go away with it because that information is half of the attack pair that a malicious user would have. So a regular user can now take on super roles, which is like so if Evgeny would be one of these users, he would log in with his normal credentials, but he can change his frame through a mechanism that is very similar to the role escalation into that of a system administration or an operator or a system administrator. And when he leaves this frame, everything is protected and can't go in there. Biggest benefit here are two, mostly the one that I already said. You don't want to have default users, so the user don't have to guess the username and then just try to power attack the password. But you also now get more credibility because typically when people use admin users, if they have 5, 6 admins, they all log in with the same user, which in the audit record looks as an admin user. You don't really know who that individual was. With that new implementation, that gives you granularity of making this work. We're going to introduce a security database that can be mirrored, which is a big thing. We're going to do a lot more with this in the future, so that's something that is very dear to our heart in current development environments. And we would like to introduce a wallet mechanism so that we can secure sensitive information that is used for application use, operational, remote login, where you need to prevent clear text credentials to authenticate with a different system. Integration technologies typically very heavily developed on something like this. So we have a rather complex security model that is feature rich and complete in its state. If it wouldn't be, we don't have a security model. But of course, there's always need to enhance it and move it. The things that you see in the pipeline here are things that will enhance the system, will make it better, will harden the system, put it into a better state. In the future, often you have to or want to do things that are not on your radar. You would like to look at things that you haven't thought about this, InterSystems haven't thought about this, or others. So as much feedback as we can get is, of course, of high interest for us. We're running a lot of security scans, for example, with our products, which is great. And we're lucky that a lot of different companies choose different products. So we have a wide spectrum of our customers using security scanners. But the downside with those is once they are there, they're running same procedure as always, right? So the real interesting aspects about building any kind of better security or approaches is really a creative brain that tries to look at this, looks into how things are implemented, looks what kind of problems that they're trying to solve, and then start building solutions around this. A very hot topic for InterSystems that we're currently discussing a lot is how do you get a really uniform API together that can work in all kind of different access mechanisms, not just through terminal, but through REST APIs. Remote connections can be integrated with technology like Kubernetes, right? Where you really would like to maybe have a mechanism where in Kubernetes you just specify a requirement that you need to have that goes back so the corrected elements to the instance and then makes it happen and lets InterSystems IRIS know what is it that you wanted me to do here without the user ever thinking about how do I do this with an InterSystems IRIS product, so fully remote. Just put down the link here for the contest. I'm sure Evgeny will show it and sign it. I will be available if people have questions on certain kind of things, and I will try to help. And I'm sure Evgeny has a help mechanism in place for this anyway. So that's the kind of thing that I wanted to share early on. I want to keep it as loose as possible to making sure that you can use your creativity to the full extent.
Andreas, thank you so much. I invite participants of this call from the community to ask questions. If you have any, just shoot it now. John, Muhammad, what do you think? Yes, actually, in this call, we also, as usual, we want to discuss how we are how participants can, what do we expect, what applications we are looking for in this contest, and yeah. So if there are no questions, I'm gonna share with you guys so how the contest will go. And today is the first day of 2 weeks period, where we expect you to submit applications that are open source GitHub applications on Open Exchange, and then you can submit them directly to the security contest. And so I will share my screen now with the information you can find regarding the contest. Let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, how to find any information about contest. This is pretty easy. You just open developer community and then go to events and programming contest. Yes, and here you will see posts that related to this contest. Yes, and speaking about requirements. We are looking for open source applications that you can apply to Open Exchange here. Share it with you. Yes, and on Open Exchange, there is a special section with a contest like current, and you choose current. Yes, here we can see that we expect your applications 2 weeks until November 28th. Actually, the topic is so popular that we already have several applications already today, so they will appear, I think, maybe later today. So
really?
Participants submitted several applications already, yes. So okay, let's talk more on what we expect from you. So yes, this should be open source application that reveals the security aspects of InterSystems security model, like what Andreas just described to you. It's authorization, authentication, encryption, and auditing. And here on the main page of security contest, you can find all the helpful resources. Documentation, learning services, and recently we have submitted a template that shows how the secure REST API that implements authentication and authorization can be developed with InterSystems IRIS. Yes, and you're free to examine it and use it as a template, for example. And speaking about judgment, I can say that that after 2 weeks of development phase, there will be a week of judgment where we have set of experts. They are InterSystems employees experienced in implementing different aspects of InterSystems security model, and they will examine your applications and vote for like 3 best apps. And the whole week will be for voting, and actually you will be able to fix bugs in your applications and submit new features during this voting week. But of course, the earlier you fix it and submit it, the more room for experts to vote for the features of your application. Also, we have technology bonuses, and you can slide through go through the yes, you can find the technology bonuses for InterSystems contest, and we expect that if your application implement this or that aspects of InterSystems security models, such as basic authentication, Oauth 2.0, or auditing or data encryption, you will collect, we will examine it, and you will collect some extra points in the final voting. So examine it, implement InterSystems IRIS security model components in your application, and you get like a handicap to win the InterSystems security contest with your application. And with this, I stop sharing my screen. And I'm looking if we have any questions so far. So you can ask them out loud or in the chat here. We also have our product managers, Andreas, Dieckow, and Bob Kuzevsky here on the call. So colleagues from community, please don't hesitate. Ask your questions now if you have it. And while we are preparing, actually, Andreas, we got some questions on Discord before the contest. Yes, also speaking of where you can discuss the contest. Of course, you're very welcome to discuss on the developer community, because all these posts that are contest related are open and welcome for comments and questions. And actually, there are already some there, and we had a question that if Andreas, if data anonymization is eligible topic for our contest, because so anonymization is a sort of encryption kind. So could you comment this? If will we consider anonymization implementation as a part of like security contest?
Yeah, it's a form of really securing information where the data in some format would like to be shared, but parts or all of it has to be hidden from being visible and usable for real context. This is a really important element for a wide variety of reasons. A simple one is the support case where customer would like to give us some data so we can have some test data that works, but that shouldn't be real data, of course. It should look like and structure like everything else, but shouldn't be used for it. But then there is also use cases where you would like users to have controlled access to something, for example, via SQL and tables, where certain kind of information should be hidden from ICE. There are different ways of doing this. It's a very complex, surprisingly complex implementation doing something like this for all kind of different data formats that are possible. Building one for a specific application is rather simple. it's not really terrible. But having one that then really holds up with multiple data models and different access mechanisms is a surprisingly complex task. Everything related to security, and I think this is part of it, is within scope of what we're interested in here.
Mm-hmm. Andreas, thank you. So to all the participants, data anonymization is officially blessed. So please submit your data anonymization solutions. And thanks, Andreas. And also we have a question in the chat. Muhammad Wazim asks, do we have any specific template available? Actually, Muhammad, security concepts, Andreas, before your answer, so I will start. Security concepts is very important, and it is widely described. These topics are widely described in documentation. So I encourage you to examine the documentation that has a lot of templates, how to use and implement these or that topics of InterSystem security model. Andreas, do you have anything to add? Sorry for taking this.
Yeah, I mean, in general, security is a topic that has like two big areas. One is documents or specifications that need to be implemented as are, like Oauth. That is an easy formula. That's probably not something that somebody wants to implement here, because there is a standard for this and that needs to be followed. But it's the creative approaches for using these kind of technologies. You probably noticed in Evgeny's list that Oauth has the highest bonus value on it. It's something that we're very interested in right now in seeing applications use of it and integration and what kind of requirements there are. Even so, there is a formula for it. There are real-world applications that want to take advantage in certain ways. So it has a certain kind of richness of trying to figure out how to implement it or not to implement something. And in general, in building any kind of security element out, it has to have information about how is the data accessed and how is that protected, who has access to it, what is the granularity of the access control of the data, and as part of the authorization elements, what kind of data what kind of access does the application need to have to fulfill requests? An example here is if you use SQL, SQL has its own security model. So if you're asking for access to data that sits in a database, the user does not need to know or have even access to the database. That is something that the SQL layer resolves automatically based on the request. So I'm not quite sure there is much of a template beyond really defining this in broad strokes. But it should be something that is coherent in describing, demonstrating certain kind of use cases. I understand 2 weeks is not a lot of time. So there's in a lot of cases when it goes about edge cases or about special considerations, I don't think it has to be a complete implementation, but the documentation probably should cover the intent if it's not there, if at all possible. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks,
Okay,
Andreas.
so this is Oliver, and a follow-up question to this directly, I think, since you mentioned OAuth or open authentication, because that's the topic.
It's open authorization, not authentication.
Okay, authorization. Okay, yeah, sorry. So it's a topic that I am, well, currently interested in, partially because, I mean, real life, yes, it would be probably a good technology to use to make our application more secure, also to come up with something for this contest. So I've searched on developer community. There are several articles or series of articles about OAuth, and found some links to some GitHub repositories, tried to clone it, bring it up, but was not successful so far. And now you said you don't expect anybody to implement OAuth for this contest. So I'm not sure if I should be discouraged by that at all, or can you maybe clarify what I should or should not attempt in this contest?
Yeah, I mean, I think a developer community has published multiple pages which were trying to showcase something at a certain time. So it could be that advances in requirements for OAuth or in implementation have changed, which might make it difficult for originally written articles to still be always valid. So I think there is a challenge sometimes in this. We developed OAuth quite some time ago. Back then, mostly it was something that was sitting around to be available, but not a lot of customers have picked it up. Initially, we had 2 customers that were having a strong interest in this and picked it up. And initially, we also did not really implement the full breadth of it. Over the years, specifically actually in the last 12 months, 12 to 18 months, we see a great increase in interest in this technology. So product documentation is probably the better choice. If you're running into problems, we probably can get you some help with this as well. So please don't feel discouraged.
Yes, I second Andreas. Second, thank you, and I second Andreas that Oliver, you are very welcome to implement Oauth, and we highlighted in the bonus list that Oauth implementation has the maximum of technology points. So we understand that it is a complex topic, but we encourage you to implement it in this contest. Oliver, thank you for your question. So Mahmoud, thank you. So any more questions regarding the security topics? And as Andreas mentioned, so yes, we will be waiting for your questions in Discord and on developer community. So don't hesitate to raise it. So we will try to help you. Actually, if there are any more questions or comments and concerns, or maybe colleagues wanna add something, or colleagues from InterSystems. So okay, great. There are no any more questions. So we expressed our requirements, and we wish you all the luck, and we wish and also wish to see your wonderful applications in this contest, and so surprise us. And good luck with the contest. And
yes,
let
good
the
luck.
Security be with you. Yeah. Okay. See you in the voting week.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for participating.